Okay, thank you. We're going to move into our second panel. There are some seats if you're standing and you would prefer to sit. There are a couple of seats. You can use the stairs. We have three candidates for state representative. Danny Factor from the Green Rainbow Party, Cory Atkins from the Democratic Party, and Helen Brady from the Republican Party. And again, just like the previous panel, our format will stay the same. Questions have been submitted on index cards. They will be presented to all three candidates. They have a 2-minute opening statement. The order of opening statements was determined randomly. Danny Factor first, Cory Atkins second, Helen Brady third, and then we will rotate. And 90 seconds to answer a question and a minute for closing statements. So let's begin. Danny Factor, please.
Well, hello, everybody. First of all, thank you so much to the League of Women Voters and everyone who had a role in organizing this. And I want to say hello and thank you to Cory and Helen. I'm so glad that we're having this forum, which is a part of democracy. So my name is Danny Factor. I'm from Acton. I'm the Green Rainbow Party candidate in this race. I myself am a public interest attorney. I sit on our town commission on disabilities. I'm one of the directors of the citizens group Green Acton, and I'm running for state rep because I am asked again and again by people who I meet in the district a question about Massachusetts, which is similar to I think the question that Bernie Sanders all challenged us back in April, which is why in a country, and particularly if we're talking about Massachusetts, in a state with so much wealth, where 70 to 80% of the representation, the elected officials in this state, in the State House, are Democrats, why are we not able to provide everyone with the basics of healthy food, clean water, decent housing, and health care for all? And why are we not able to halt climate change, since both the issue of poverty and the issue of climate change are ones that were created by us? Why can't we do that? So, just as a grounding for tonight's discussion, recall that, in the primaries, for example, the Green Rainbow Party, for people who don't know, is much closer to Bernie Sanders' positions. Cory Atkins, the incumbent opponent, was a strong supporter of Hillary Clinton over Bernie Sanders. And the difference in our position is one where we take much stronger positions in getting to ending poverty and halting climate change. Thank you.
Time is up. Okay. Cory, 2 minutes, please.
Oh, thank you. And good evening,
Cory,
everybody.
can you push the button?
Yes.
There you go.
I was wondering what was happening. Let me start by thanking the League of Women Voters for sponsoring tonight's event. The League represents the gold standard for all of their work on voter access and integrity in our elections. I am proud to be a member of this hard-working organization. I'm Cory Atkins, State Representative for the 14th Middlesex District. I also serve as the House Chair on the Joint Committee of Tourism, Arts, and Cultural Development. I have been honored to represent our community values of independence, equality, and shared prosperity for the towns of Concord, Acton, Carlisle, and Chelmsford. Tonight, I hope we discuss these topics. My campaign is all about the shared values of our community. My votes against Speaker DeMaisi highlight the first of these values, independence. I want to have a conversation tonight about what it truly means to have an independent state representative. Second, I think it's vital to discuss equality. I have a long track record of supporting equality for all people, and I'd like to hear from my opponents on this critical issue. The third thing I'm hoping to discuss is how are we going to share prosperity not just in our district, but in mass throughout the whole Commonwealth. It is an honor to be here tonight to discuss these and many issues with all of you, and I look forward to a spirited debate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Helen, please, your opening statement.
First of all, thank you, everybody, for coming. And my name is Helen Brady, and I am the mother of 4 great children. Their ages 19, 17. One's going to be 14 on Halloween, and another who is 11 years old. I've worked full-time for the Boston Symphony Orchestra in many capacities. I started there as a temp. My mother made sure I took typing for 4 years in high school. I went to college, and when I got out, guess what got me the job? The typing. So that's, Mom knows best, always. But anyway, the reason why I'm running is I love to be involved in politics. I always have held a sign for somebody, proud to hold whatever sign it was for that person, and I was more nationally focused, and I've decided that I'm phooey on the national level, and I started to look more closely at what was going on more locally. And I was troubled by the headlines that we all read about, healthcare connector, gone bust basically when Governor Baker took office, the MBTA, which is a $1 billion tax money suck, for better word, lack of better word. And I just thought, what's going on in that State House? It's a one-party system is what's going on. There's a bit of an oligarchy going on. When 3 speakers of the House are all indicted, one's right now in federal prison, I think that's a problem. And if we continue with this culture of corruption up there, we're not going to get anything done, and the services that people need are not going to be delivered to them. I will try to bring new perspective, be a catalyst of change, and try to support Charlie Baker in his efforts to reform what's wrong up on Beacon Hill. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Typing got me my first job, too,
Everybody.
many years ago. Okay, going on to our first question. We are going to present this to you in the following order: Helen, Danny, and Cory. So it is actually the same question that was asked of our Senate candidates. The audience wants to know, who are you supporting for U.S. President, and what is your position on the 4 ballot questions? Question 1 are slots. Question 2 are charter schools. Question 3, animal rights. Question 4, legalizing marijuana. Helen.
First of all, for president, I probably will support Governor Weld, former Governor Weld, and Gary Johnson. I have issues pertaining particularly to sexual harassment and things of that nature. I've had those issues in my life to the extent I don't really care to get into. If anybody wants to ask me afterwards, I'll tell you exactly what's happened to me throughout my life. And I think both candidates that are up there are flawed. And also with regard to the ballot questions, I do not support any more gaming licenses being given, and we don't need them. I think there's better things that our community can put forth in terms of tourism, other attractions we could get people to and bring more revenue to different communities. I support charter schools. My husband's a teacher at Roxbury at St. Patrick's, and I take his lead on this. He goes into the city every day and teaches students that are don't have what we have in this community, and I would never want to take that choice away from a parent, personally. And let's see, vote. What
3, animal rights for legalizing marijuana.
I don't think that our local farms could support. I don't think the farmers could handle that sort of a change in regulations, and it will affect people trying to buy eggs. People who don't have a lot of money. $7 for a dozen eggs is what I think. What the ramifications of doing that. Of course, we care for animals, but we also have to care for our farmers locally, especially. And for number 4, marijuana, it's a gateway drug. I've had issues, not that I smoke pot, but I actually don't know how I feel on that. So right now, it's no.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and Danny, the presidential race and 4 ballot questions, please.
So first of all, for president, I'm a strong supporter of Jill Stein for president. And the major major reason that I support her is that she is the only candidate that is from a national party that doesn't take money from corporations. And that's a tremendous distinction between the other candidates. And it allows her to actually advocate for what people are actually clamoring for. She's the only candidate that actually has a plan to halt climate change, for example. And she's the only candidate also that supports a single-payer health care system. As far as the ballot questions, question 1, I am voting no. I believe that not only slot machines, but casinos only hurt communities. They hurt property values as well. On question number 2, I'm a strong supporter of no on 2. I believe that most charter schools are actually corporate entities, and it robs most students of the funding that they need in their public schools. I'm a strong supporter of animal rights, so I'm voting yes on 3, and I am voting yes on 4 as well because I'm concerned about, in particular, doctors who are scared to prescribe marijuana to people who need it, especially people who may end up getting addicted on opiates if they don't have the proper pain medicine. So I'm a strong supporter of yes on 4.
Thank you. Thank you. The public wants to know. Thank you. Question 2, in the order of Cory, I did it again. I am so sorry. She doesn't even have a check on my chart. Cory, same question, please.
Same question. I support Hillary Clinton for President of the United States. I am enormously indebted and commend Bernie Sanders for holding our feet to the fire on many of the issues that I care about, dealing with Wall Street and many other big corporate interests. On question 1, which is I stand with the people of Revere, who just had a referendum on this, and their officials, and I'm against a new slot parlor there. On question 2, which is the
Charter schools?
Charter Schools Initiative, I have been against charter schools for 40 years. And this is the first year I'm taking a different tactic because we've not been able to solve this problem. And I cannot look at another generation of parents or children and not give them a choice. So I'm willing to experiment. On question number 3, research suggested I was concerned about the cost of this driving up food, and it would only drive up the cost of eggs up to 5 cents, and we only have one farm in the Commonwealth that this would affect. So I'm for question 3. And question 4, for legalizing marijuana, I have difficulty with this because of the effects on juvenile brains that recent brain studies have revealed. And also because of, as an accident that just happened today, where a state trooper was killed by somebody driving who was under the influence. There isn't a way for us to tell if somebody under the influence is driving. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we're moving to question 2. Cory, Helen, and then Danny. What can the legislature do to help Acton with a proposed water treatment plant? And you're going to have to help me here because I don't live in Acton. Nageg?
Nagog.
Nagog. Thank you, Pond. Okay, Cory.
All right. This is a very, very difficult issue for the town of Acton and Concord. And what the state can do is a real query. Jamie and I, Senator Eldridge and I have spent a long time discussing this. Both of us have walked the territory around the pond, spent a lot of time with the neighbors, and we've been trying to get the local officials of both communities together because this is a problem that needs to be solved on a local level. People from outside of the community are watching this very closely because many towns have these kinds of water issues and agreements with other communities. So what happens here in Concord and in Acton will set a precedent for how other problems will be resolved. We at the state don't have a lot of authority here. We did not make the agreements, and we basically don't enforce the agreements. So, but we're willing to work with the officials and the neighbors towards a resolution.
Thank you very much. And Helen, same question.
I always think that the best solutions come from local governments, the towns that work together and collaborate together. And when it comes to water, I think this is an issue that has a lot to do with the overdevelopment of these towns, a lot of housing, and there's only so much water to go around. So I think this is the beginning of what's going to be the trend around the state. And at some point, the state is going to have to get involved if people don't come together on a solution and have some better long-range planning instituted, both locally and through the state, to help figure out what are we going to do with water issues, because this is the beginning. Thanks.
Thank you. And Danny, the same question.
Yeah, so for people who don't know, this involves a pond that is in Acton, where the water is actually owned by Concord due to an agreement that goes back 100 years ago. And it really is endemic of showing how we need to change based on current conditions. The water situation in Massachusetts is an absolute crisis right now, and it's due, to one word. It's called growth. And the reason that that the State House needs to do more is that we need to have much stronger zoning policies and planning policies statewide to limit growth. And the reason that it's not happening has to do with the influence of corporations and builders and developers and the influence that they have on Beacon Hill right now. So that's the part that needs to change. If we can put the power back in the people, we will be able to equitably distribute water to the people who need it the most.
Thank you very much. So there were several questions about income inequality and the differences that we're seeing across the state, but especially within your area. How do you determine and reach a compromise on challenges for Massachusetts that balances competing interests? And what do you believe what can we do about the underlying causes of income inequality? How can we make sure that people make it in your district? Danny, you're first, Cory, and then Helen.
Well, you have to decide what things you compromise on and what things are rights. And, everyone is familiar with our political rights, right? The right to remain silent and the right to not have the police search your house, for example. But there's also a concept of something called economic human rights as well, which basically says that all human beings, have the basic right to healthy food, to clean water, to decent housing, and to health care. And that's something that needs to be proclaimed in our Constitution. And it can't be something that we just negotiate away, because when we do that, again, the corporate interests will come into play. We have a homelessness problem, not only in Massachusetts, but in our region as well. I think many of us are aware of people who are sleeping in their cars, or people who are going from house to house or place to place. Some of the clients that I work with are people with disabilities who risk, ending up homeless, on the street, where they're not even able to take care of their toileting care, for example. So it's a crisis right now, and there's really no explanation other than the corporate influence. So I hope that you consider voting for a Green Rainbow Party candidate that does not take corporate contributions and can provide basic human economic rights for all.
Thank you. And Cory, the same question, please.
This is one of the most critical questions facing the Commonwealth right now. Even though we're a leader on so many progressive issues, we have a huge divide between those at the top and those at the bottom. And it's never been as exasperated as it is at the present moment. So people have gotten together on their own and proposed what is called Fair Share Initiative. This will be a ballot question that asks people who make $1 million and over. You have to make your first $1 million before this extra tax kicks in at $1,001, which is an extra 4%. One of the things that we did with the referendum question in the 2000s, that I was one of the only elected officials that campaigned against, was take a lot of money out of the tax base of Massachusetts that allowed for more equity. We have to get funding back in. People at the bottom of the income base in Massachusetts pay 20% of their income in taxes. And no wonder they can't make it. And often they're not paid a livable wage. And even though the state tries to subsidize that with different kinds of programs in housing and in food and in medical care, all of us here have been born and our kids have been educated in such a way that we may not have a guaranteed ceiling, but we have a guaranteed floor. For a lot of kids in this Commonwealth, they can't see the floor.
Thank you very much. Helen, same question, please.
With regard to income inequality, I'm a strong believer in making sure that there are programs available for people who want to develop their skills and work so that they can get out of the minimum wage cycle that leaves people with certainly not enough money. I mean, that jobs back then, when I was in high school, I worked for minimum wage at different jobs, and we just need to be able to get people out of that those particular jobs and give them more skills. So I believe that we need to definitely invest some more money in those sorts of programs for adults. And I also disagree, you're talking about the millionaire's tax, and I think that's a slippery slope. A lot of the people that are at that level are millionaires because they probably worked 90 to 100 hours and didn't make anything, and then they finally make something, and they provide jobs for other people, and it's a slippery slope, and all it's going to do is create another bracket that we're all going to end up being in. So my question, I guess actually my answer is to give people better opportunities and jobs and bring more companies into the state of Massachusetts so that those people will have the opportunity to work, and not necessarily just in Boston, but in towns like we're in. Develop the tourism industry would be really a great opportunity. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Next question is about healthcare. What are the biggest issues facing the state in the area of health insurance? And do you believe in single-payer health care? Helen, you're first, Danny second, and Cory third.
I have always been fortunate to have health care. My father worked for the insurance industry, so we've always had health care, and I think it's important that we provide that service to every person is entitled, especially in the cities, in the state that we're in with the different hospitals that are here. I like to have choice, and my needs are different than everybody else's needs, but I think right now with what has happened with the healthcare situation, the cost has gone way up. I think my own premiums have almost doubled in the last couple of years, and I can absorb that, but I'm not so sure everybody else can. So I'm certainly open for more discussions about ways to make sure that everybody can go to the hospital or to the doctors and receive adequate health care without being afraid of what sort of bill they're going to get. So.
Thank you. Danny, question is healthcare. So it started with, what are the biggest issues facing the state in the area of health insurance, and do you believe in single-payer healthcare?
Well, the Green Rainbow Party, and the Green Party nationally, because we're the affiliate of the Green Party of the United States, is the only national party that has in its platform health care as a human right and a single-payer health care system, just like every other Western democracy has. The concern that we have, is why the United States hasn't changed over, and it's clearly because of corporate influence. Because when you look at single-payer health care, it's a win-win situation. It provides health care as a human right, and it also cuts costs at the same time, would actually actually save billions of dollars within the United States and millions of dollars within Massachusetts. So what my question is why don't we have it already? And it's clearly because, we have, whether you want to call it a two-party system in Massachusetts or a one-party system in Massachusetts, it's not letting the voices of logic in, and it's not letting the voices of compassion in. So single-payer health care is imperative, or else lives will be lost.
Thank you very much. Cory, same question.
Senator Aldridge and I are enjoying a very rare moment when this is kind of like the Easter Bunny, that the Democratic Party has a consensus on every single issue, because we fight amongst ourselves more than we fight with the Republicans or any third party. I think the two largest obstacles right now are the rising and escalating costs at a rate that is unfathomable. And second is the irregular accessibility for people. I get great health care, but that doesn't mean Danny gets great health care. It's irregular all over the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I, too, believe that the most effective, after looking at this issue for several decades now, the one system that consistently works and that keeps costs down is Medicare, a single source healthcare system provider. And I doubted this when Senator Eldridge said this years ago when he was campaigning. So my apology, Senator, and I think you're right.
Thank you. Okay, so the people would like to know, if elected or re-elected, which committees do you serve on, and what would you like to be what committees would you like to be appointed to, and why? Cory, you're first. So what do you sit on, and what would you like that you're not sitting on?
I chair one committee, and that is Tourism, Arts, and Cultural Development. And I have asked to be reassigned to that committee once. I will ask again. And I ask because it's the third largest resource of revenue for the city, for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So the opportunities for economic development are huge. And we have lots of opportunities to increase revenue, add taxes and fees that don't affect people here. In Concord, we share two international destination sites, the Walden Pond and the Old North Bridge. And just down the road in Acton, there is the most magical treehouse that's just been built at the Discovery Museum. And they're about to launch this new edition with, it just makes me shiver, the kinds of scientific experiments and experiences that kids can get from 1 year old until they're in their teens. You see all the adults in there playing with the little kids' experiments. We can bring people who come into our areas, buy our gasoline, eat in our restaurants, pay local food tax, so that we benefit from those. That's what I call jobs on Main Street. These are jobs that are not outsourced. These are jobs that make our communities vital. I've been able to add $6 million more to our arts accounts, and I've also been
Thank you.
instrumental. Sorry, I won't stop there.
Thank you. Good stop. All right, Helen.
Hi.
If elected, which committees?
Well, obviously, my job is Director of Group Sales and Tourism, and part of that job is that I go out on sales missions with people from the aquarium, the JFK Library, the aquarium, the duck tours. We all work together. We started this collaboration many, many years ago to bring more visitors into Boston so that that number is as high as it is. And that's from people working together, putting our resources, which are limited. I work at a nonprofit. It's a big organization, but we want to bring in visitors from all over the world. I'm scheduled to go to China in March with the sales mission from the Greater Boston Convention and Visitors Bureau. This is an area I'm very I know a whole lot about it, and I know how to bring people here, so I think that that would be a good opportunity for me. I also am very interested in mental health issues pertaining to addiction. In my family, I've lost people to suicide and to a drug overdose, so these are areas, again, where I have personal, unfortunately, experience with, and I think that I could lend a really good voice to concerns that people have in their families and how to provide the best services and be really realistic about the outcomes.
Thank you very much. And Danny, which
So-
committees?
So the chief assignment that I would be asking for would be the Climate Change Committee. And the reason is that I think that we have to recognize climate change is our greatest threat, as an existential threat. We actually, and we don't have it right now, we think we're good because we're better than other states, but we need an emergency plan to halt climate change. And Massachusetts, just like it was a model as far as marriage equality, needs to be a model for the nation and the world. What's incredible is that the same legislation that can halt climate change can also provide hundreds and thousands of green, safe, living wage jobs. So I would like to see Massachusetts set a bold goal of 100% fossil fuel free and an end to poverty by 2030. I believe that we can do that if we're willing to say no new pipelines, no new gas lines to buildings, immediate repair of dangerous, wasteful gas leaks, and a statewide building moratorium. Because when I hear the words economic development and sales calls, which can sometimes be good, I'm worried that they're code words for a larger carbon footprint. And we have to recognize that climate change is not going to impact, not only going to impact the people who live on the coast, it's a threat to our whole food supply. And it's the people who are most vulnerable, who are most food insecure already that are going to suffer. So that is our chief threat, and we must address it now.
Thank you. Then the next question is regarding what can government do to assist Massachusetts residents to live independently? Residents with disabilities, our elderly, what kinds of programs would you advocate, and what would you do if elected? Helen, you're first on that.
I've been canvassing around the district quite a bit, and I happened upon, just coincidentally, a couple of group homes in different neighborhoods. This neighborhood happened to be in Chelmsford, and they didn't know I was coming, and I think it's an out-of-state company perhaps bought different properties. And I walked in, and these people were well cared for, the homes were clean, and the people were happy. The caregivers couldn't have been kinder. And I thought, wow, this is actually a good idea for some communities to have. And also I think it's an opportunity for people who want to do community service to come and perhaps help in this sort of situation. In our town, it's a very generous town, and they have a fund set up for elderly who have trouble paying their real estate tax. So, of course, we want to let people stay in their homes as long as they can. But we need to also support families whose parents might have Alzheimer's or need extra care. So as the population ages, we obviously need to look at ways that the state can assist these families so that we can do this in a efficient and economic and in a kind manner to take care of people that need our help.
Thank you very much. I just got the notification that this is our last question. So following this question, we'll be going into closing statements. But Danny, can you address the question of what can government do, if elected, what can you do to assist with helping people live independently, both disabled as well as our elderly?
So I'm very happy to talk about this because I sit on our town commission on disabilities. I've sat on that commission for 6 years now, and it's really been an eye-opening experience. So I'll talk about a few things. First of all, it has been a wonderful thing in the last 20 years that we've had a deinstitutionalization to allow so many more people to live, to have the potential to live independently. The problem is that we're not providing the resources. One example are what are called PCAs, if you guys know what that is, personal care assistants. They get paid an extremely low wage and are not able to provide the services that they can. So we need far more funding for that. The second second issue that restricts the rights of people with disabilities and seniors as well is the availability of affordable housing. And here I'm not talking as much as what's known as the 40B middle income housing, which we're doing an all right job on, but very low income housing as well. I have clients that I try to serve in my law office that are on wait lists for 5, 6, and 10 years, and it's completely unacceptable. We also have a problem both in the senior and with people with disability community as far as isolation. There was a study done by the United Way on that. So we need to have our communities coming together. We need to be funding more community centers than we're doing right now. And we have to find ways to pay for this. A millionaire's tax is not enough. It doesn't bring enough revenue. We need a full graduated income tax in this country.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I know you're very passionate. You could talk on that for a long time, as I'm sure we all could. Cory, the same question.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I've been struggling with this issue on a personal level. My mother is 91. She's in the house in Marshfield that she bought over 50 years ago on her GI Bill, and she doesn't want to leave it. And she recently had a bad fall, and so I spent a weekend in the hospital with her. And she went from there to rehab. And I had had an aide with her at home. I mean, it was very hard because she was very stubborn about it. But, and now I've upped it so that there's somebody there 7 days a week. But we, really worked hard on this in the legislature because this was one of the big shifts was to be able to create agencies that could provide personal care assistance so that people could stay in their homes. A lot of people, that's what they want to do. And Danny's absolutely right. One of the downsides of that is isolation. So these aides not only provide a lot of help in personal tasks that need to be done, but they're also company and a source of I was wondering if my mother liked the rehab center exchange of social ability better than being at home. But no. So this is critical. It's critical, but it's not cheap. It's not cheap even when we pay the worst wages possible. I'm always sending extra money to our caretakers because I can't believe that that's what they work for.
Thank you so much. We're going into closing statements in the following order, please. Cory Atkins, Helen Brady, and Danny Factor. Cory, you have a minute.
A minute?
Just a minute.
Well, during this minute, I would once again like to thank the League of Women Voters. The debates are just absolutely important to the electoral process. I would also like to give a big thanks and a shout out to everyone tonight who stood out with a sign, whether it was my sign, Helen's sign, or Danny's sign, because I think you all are soldiers for democracy. It was cold out there, and thank you for doing what you're doing. I have really enjoyed representing these districts, and I continue to want to be your voice in the State House, to be an independent state representative, not just a rubber stamp for any governor or any speaker or any cause, but to represent you in issues of equality and shared prosperity. And I have enjoyed your support, your absolutely depthless source of resource in terms of ideas, and I'm honored to be your state representative.
Thank you. Good closing. Okay. And, I see I put this away too fast. Okay. Helen, please.
Thank you all for inviting me here. I appreciate the opportunity. I just want to say, why should you take a chance on somebody named Helen Brady, who is not a politician and who has never held office? First, we wouldn't have a government if people like me didn't run. And second of all, we have a one-sided, lopsided, corrupt culture at our State House, as indicated by all of the headlines that we all are familiar with. And, the other part about it is what I've done with my campaign in the last several months should be indicative of how I'll work. I have never run a campaign ever. My name has gotten everywhere. I've met so many people in this community. I will work hard. I have the endorsement of the governor. I have the endorsement of Tom Brady for what it's worth. He's a hard worker, and he would never just endorse me just to endorse me. He knows my work ethic. He knows my family. And I also have the endorsement of bipartisan support throughout my community from a lot of people who believe in me and believe that a new voice is needed from this district. And I would like to be that person. I know that I can do it, and I will hit the ground running the day I'm elected.
Thank you so much. And Danny?
Well, I want to say, start first of all, how much I have enjoyed getting to know Cory and Helen in this race. I want to say on the record that I think that they're both good and honest people. But the leadership in Beacon Hill is not. And if you want a state representative to take on the issues in a way where they are not stifled by their own party, then please vote for the Green Rainbow Party, and I ask for your vote on November 8th. We believe that every single person deserves dignity, respect, and love, and we believe that going with a party and a platform where we are committed not to take corporate contributions is the only way to serve each and every person. So I ask for your vote on November 8th. Thank you very much.
And thank you. Thank you to the candidates. Thank you to the audience. Now you may applause and hug. Thank you. So just from the League of Women Voters, we do want to remind you that Election Day is November 8th, but early voting has already started, and we would encourage you to take advantage of that. It's new this year. We would like to send a message to the legislature that the people want it and that we would like it to continue and to expand. So if you have a chance, please early vote. Thank you very much.